MPOWDER community. I'm going to be talking today to the amazing Amelia Rope. For those of you that haven't come across her Instagram handle, I suggest you follow her immediately. It's Amelia_Rope, and we're going to be having quite a lyrical conversation this evening. There's a sort of slight shift, I guess, from what we often talk about in this community. We are going to be talking about menopause journeys. We're also going to be talking about joy and the importance of a healthy relationship with food and finding joy in food. And the reason I'm excited to talk to Amelia is because she brings so much joy to the world of chocolate.
Hello.
Hello. I'm just readjusting my screen.
I know, it's like you have to slip down to sort of like fit into the when someone else joins as well, don't you?
You do, and when you do a sort of trial run, you think, yeah, I'm fine, and then you just think, actually, I'm not fine. But anyway.
You are fine. I'm so excited to be having this conversation. I'm almost dribbling as we begin this conversation. We haven't even opened the chocolate bars yet. But I was just saying before you joined that what was fascinating for me in reading a little bit more about your background, I've obviously been a huge fan and followed your feed on Instagram. That's how we met, because it brought me so much joy actually during lockdown when there wasn't much to be had. And we then did a live probably a year or so ago, I think, where we talked specifically about cacao and chocolate and dark chocolate and your own menopause journey in a little bit of detail. But looking again at your bio, what I hadn't realised was that you started off as a massage therapist. You were interested in herbal medicine and holistic practices, and then that kind of led to your love of food, the two Masterchef processes you went through, which sounds incredible, and then obviously the founding of your own chocolate brand. So I just wanted to start there really in terms of your journey and kind of where you are now, because obviously you're having these amazing adventures and bringing some of the best chocolate bars to share on Instagram. I know obviously there's a podcast in the wings as well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, apologies to everybody that I was sick. I was so annoyed, frustrated, but anyway, thank you very much for fitting me in. So basically my interest in health, mainly complementary therapy, came about because I was overweight and I could never lose weight, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't lose weight. My mother was beautiful and slim and all this sort of stuff, and so I explored complementary medicine, and I explored homeopathy, and I explored acupuncture, and then I qualified as a massage therapist, broke both my arms. It was in Thai massage, went to live in the States. Oh, and it's weird. I mean, life is weird, okay? And then I came back and I ended up studying nutrition, and then moved into herbal medicine, and then became a qualified aromatherapist. And then I ended up in chocolate, and chocolate won't leave me. So the others sort of came and went. And I think there are so many chapters in our life where things come to us and then they move on. Even if we don't want them to move on, that's just the journey of it. So eclectic, basically my life has been busy and full. And and then I was on Masterchef, and then I set up my chocolate business, and incredible. But really, I suppose my driver was being overweight. That's where it sort of took me. And when I set up my chocolate business, I wanted a guilt-free chocolate. So the chocolates that I designed were low in fat as possible, but they were packed full of taste, because what I found is that taste something that really delivers, you need less of it. And so I'm playing around with, and I've got itchy fingers at the moment with creativity. I think it's being ill. You just start thinking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
so I mean,
having seen some of your just for people that haven't seen Amelia's feed, every so often you return to the Amelia Rope chocolate days and kind of share the beauty actually in the craft. These rose dipped chocolate petals, you know, with I mean they're just the most exquisite things. And obviously you just skipped in that way that females do over the fact that this was an award-winning chocolate brand that supplied chocolates to Howard and Howard's in the Far East and everything. So it's a phenomenal achievement. And again, to your point around sort of letting things go and things coming to you and then leaving you when you don't necessarily want them. I know you made a very brave decision also to stop the business, didn't you? And then to move into consultancy and becoming a chocolatier, which is the best job title ever. Yeah,
I mean, that was really tough being married. But my business was a big part of me, and so to reach the decision to move out of it was really raw, and it took me 2.5 years to do. But I knew for my health, and I knew for the business really that I had to do it. So I didn't have a choice in ways. But yeah, the rose petals, that I love roses, and I dipped them in chocolate, decorated them gold leaf, and then I did mint leaves, and then I did pansies. And for celebrity, well, is he a celebrity? He's like a big singer, and who I was a member of his fan club. I did an order through a chef for them, which were violas, which were beautiful, dipped in chocolate with gold leaf, which were going on a chocolate mousse. And I delivered them in my car, and his wife opened the door, and I was like, oh my God, I thought it was amazing, but I had no idea. Anyway, that was my little claim to fame. And then the bars, and yes, I supplied amazing stores, and I met incredible people, one of which is my hero, Paul Smith. So yeah, I mean, it was amazing. But again, with the chapters, it sort of evolved. And now I'm doing consultancy work, and I do want to get my chocolate podcast up and running. So I talk a lot about chocolate. I explore chocolate. We've got 2 amazing chocolate makers who are in this live. We've got Louisa, who creates vegan chocolate, and we've also got Anoni, who we're going to taste her chocolate later. And so yeah, my journey has been eclectic, and that's what I'd say to anybody. It's just, you know, life is full of chapters, I keep saying. Just try and flow with it, and at times it's going to be really challenging, and other times you just think, oh my goodness, this is just incredible. And then we have the menopause thrown in, and my menopause, as I know I've said to you, was very early, and it took me completely by surprise. So I had no idea. I had bed sweats when I was 40, but I just thought it was stress in my business. You know, I didn't separate it at all. And now I discovered that my mother had an early menopause, which probably explained why I didn't get on particularly well with her, because she was going through it as I was a teenager. So that was 2 big sort of clashes. But it took the decisions that I was parking in my mind of whether I wanted to have children or not, and things like that. It sort of took them away. And a lot of my friends haven't even gone through it. So there was no community. You know, what you've done, Rebecca, and what you keep doing is you create a phenomenal community, which takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of dedication, and you keep doing it, and you're so consistent. And it's brilliant, because there was no chat about menopause. You know, it was almost a hush word. You were too embarrassed to say that, you know, you were going through the menopause. And certainly I found it difficult with my business at the time. So now I can't remember what I'm telling you. About early menopause. And so, you know, yeah, it hit me when I was 40, 41.
Which is really tough. And I think, I mean, we've talked before about your menopause experience. I want to come on and hear about your other adventures and to talk more about what you've been doing recently. But I remember when we talked originally about your menopause experience, chocolate again had a part to play in it. There were sort of types of chocolate that worked, that your body wanted, and there were types of chocolate you didn't. I was fascinated by that at the time. I wonder if you could just share a little bit of that before we sort of start talking about what you've been up to more recently.
Yeah. So what I found was that at times I couldn't eat dark chocolate. I would just, I mean, I've got a bit of a flush going on now, but that's nerves. I was really nervous, which is ridiculous. It's funny, I used to be nervous when I was hosting lives, but when you're a guest, you're thinking, am I going to remember this, that, and the other?
No, it's so much harder. I just get to listen to you being amazing. So I completely sympathize. Yes.
God. Anyway, so, because you don't know where you're going to go with it. But anyway, basically, so dark chocolate, sometimes I couldn't eat it. It just would give me a hot flush, and it'd be absolutely hopeless. And other times I could eat it. And I found that I could then switch on to white chocolate, and there was no problem, which is really mainly sugar, or milk chocolate. And exploring it slightly more, I wonder if it's the theobromine and caffeine ratio, because you've got a lot of theobromine. You've got the ratio is 9 of theobromine to 1 of caffeine. I drink a lot of coffee, and that I found didn't particularly affect me. So if white chocolate hasn't got any theobromine and I was okay with that, maybe it's a theobromine issue. And maybe when your body is going through these cycles, you've got more of one hormone and less of the other, and it could be reactive. Theobromine is also slow releasing energy.
Yes. Caffeine
is like this big
spike, yeah.
Which could explain why chocolate, even though it has got caffeine in, you never have that heart flutter that potentially caffeine. And so I just sort of played around with it. But I mean, I ate chocolate throughout. I didn't deny myself anything at all. I found my savior was lemon and ginger. with hot water, which I know can irritate. Ginger can irritate people, but that really calmed me down. And when I say calm me down, not as in emotionally, just my body, because I had quite a lot of inflammation going on at the same time. So I think if you have your chocolate fix, and it's an incredible, oh my goodness, the most amazing product that I'm hoping is going to come to the UK. And I said to the owner, this is so set up for menopause. Okay, they're frozen, they're Argentinian Patagonian raspberries, frozen with the thinnest coating of white chocolate and the thinnest coating of dark chocolate. And that to me is a really healthy, it's frozen, so it's the equivalent of ice cream hit. And I think that would be amazing with the menopause, because it would be cooling. It wouldn't be too much sugar. It's a bit of fruit. So yeah, just play around, but don't deny yourself anything, because it's just part of life, and you can't just park your life up for 10 years or 5 years or 3 years or whatever your menopause is. It's just not worth it. So yeah, I mean, I just played with chocolate.
Well,
and
interesting your points. I think you're right. I mean, we have the raw cacao in our Peri Boost blend, and from a naturopathic point of view, the cacao gives you that slow release of energy, and it has all kinds of mineral rich properties as well, as you all know. So when you have it in its whole form, it's got it's got the magnesium in it, it's got all kinds of goodness that it delivers as well, but it's much more gentle. And so it's interesting. And also some people have the gene, which means that they don't get the coffee spike. I'm lucky to say that I'm like you, I can drink coffee all day, whereas a lot of people in our community will report that it does give them that heart palpitation, and as they go through menopause they become more exposed to it. But I think what's interesting about how we play with food and how we work out how we find our joy without the blood sugar spikes, because the frustrating thing sometimes as you go through menopause is that it's not necessarily you want to deny yourself anything, it's just your reaction to sugary food. The crash is harder because your blood sugar is more exposed and more susceptible as a result of those hormone fluctuations. And so that's why your philosophy of sort of little joyful bites of really, really gorgeous things, and then also encouraging us to look at maybe dark chocolate in a way that we haven't done before, because many of us still think of Bourneville or really, really bitter cooking chocolate rather than realizing what's out there. So I'm keen to hear about your trip to Thailand, because again you kind of come back from another adventure, and what I love about your chocolatiering around the world is you're always sharing innovation, and you're always sharing sort of good and exciting things that are happening in this category. And we're going to obviously try some chocolates in a minute, but what was it about that experience, because it felt like it really reignited your love of what you do?
First of all, I love adventure and I love travel, and if it's related to cocoa, I would be there. And I'm a bit of a nomad in a way, so I would keep on, I love exploring, I like coming and going. And I was very lucky. The Thailand opportunity was because one of my greatest friends lives in Thailand, and he kept saying come out, and there are phenomenal chocolate makers, Paniti and his wife Nataya, who have the brand Cacao, who are out there, and I'd met them over here. And they have set up this incredible venture, which I went to explore in the Nam province. So I went to Bangkok to sort of acclimatize myself. And oh my goodness, they've got some incredible chocolate creations. Again, wonderful for the menopause, really thin coconut chips with a really thin layer of chocolate. Ideal, because it's such a balanced little food. Yeah. Anyway, we went up to Nam, which is up in the north, and it's more, I suppose it's more uncommon to visit. It's near Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai, which are two regions that again chocolate growing. And I went up there to explore this new course that they've set up with Tula University, which is the equivalent of, I suppose, Oxford or Cambridge over here. And they have set up a course that in the agricultural department, which is purely around growing cocoa and understanding how to grow it, but also the fermentation process, which is key to the end flavor. And it's set up, I'm just going to be really quick, but the story to me was just incredible. So it's set up because cocoa farmers up in the north, or their farmers, were sold, like a plant nursery came around selling them cocoa plants, and they didn't know what to do with the plants, but the people selling them said, we'll come back, we'll buy the cocoa from you, not a problem. So the farmers thought, great. And, to put you in perspective, there are farmers around 85 who look as if they're in their 50s. They're incredibly agile and fit. But they couldn't produce, they had the fruit, it didn't work, the trees wouldn't grow, they had big problems. And so the farmers used their initiative, and they approached the agricultural department saying, help. We need to sell our cocoa. We need to grow it. We need to make money out of it. And so an incredible professor, her nickname is Professor Tick, she got in touch with Cacao, who she knew were bean to bar makers, and they've created this course. And what is exciting is it's not just for the farmers, it's also for the undergrads too. So you've got the younger generation, many of whom are women, who are learning how to grow cocoa, and they're learning about fermentation. And it's very altruistic. So it's not for Cacao. So it's not like big chocolate companies who are saying, we're doing this, but it's all with their name on. This is just for anybody. But what the country is really lacking, and this is what I learned, is quality. And they need to understand the quality to be able to produce the quality beans to sell them to chocolate makers. And it was just incredible. I mean, I went out, and yeah, it ignites me. You know, cocoa plantations, the cocoa farms, you see the pods, they're different colors, they're slightly different shapes. You know, you open one up, you slice it open, and inside you've got this collection of beans that are surrounded in this white sticky mucilage. And if you take a bean, you know, the mucilage tastes a sort of light sheet. It's the most, there's something, to me, it's the essence. And that's why back on eating chocolate, you know, if you can, like your supplements, fantastic, because you're using cacao in the sort of under processed way. Raw chocolate, the brilliant woman Emily, as raw as, phenomenal raw chocolates. Cocoa nibs, you know, putting them on the salad, that is where you're going to get the highest concentration of nutrients rather than the processing. And once you start adding milk and sugar, you're diluting it. And actually, I don't know, but there was chat about milk chocolate potentially affecting your absorption, so therefore you might absorb less nutrients. But it's a really special place, Thailand. I've been to Brazil, I've been to Mauritius, and then I hop across to Paris and Brussels and stuff like that. But I love it. It just, you know, even thinking about it now, just makes me want to go back. It's incredible. And, you know, with Thailand, with Asia, they're relatively new to cocoa. So I think cocoa only went to Thailand, started growing in Thailand about 40 years ago.
Amazing.
So it is exciting. Down in the south, they've got an incredible climate for cocoa, but in the north, they're really driven and ambitious. And that's where most of the cocoa is grown, but the climate is less productive to grow cocoa.
So interesting. I mean, I could listen to you talk about it for ages. So I just think it's also fascinating as to how new models of business are being built. And I think actually I mean, I've been a fan of Tony Chocolonely just from a pure sort of like campaign, mission orientated push that they did and began years ago. Many people are now buying the bars and probably totally unaware of what they were setting out to do. But it just feels that there's a real groundswell of rethinking how businesses run, how businesses can do good, you know, this kind of triple bottom line and a far more responsible thing. And I think for us as females in midlife, we often forget the buying power and the influence we have actually as consumers. And you know, to start understanding what's available to us and to look at the chocolates that are doing good things and also tasting amazing and are also good for us is a way of bringing joy back into our lives. And the stories you tell, I think that's why I love following you, make you fall in love with the product beyond just getting that taste hit or that sweet thing on your tongue.
I do eat too much of it. There is no but what I maintain is quality versus quantity. That trumps it, and the whole thing is moderation, because if you know, and exercise, so it's a whole united thing. But how I see chocolate is to go on an adventure and to explore. If you know your price point is lower, there are still good chocolates. Just explore what you can afford, but try from different countries, try different percentages. If you're more milk, try a dark, just to see, because as you say, taste is, you know, a flavor of chocolate has changed a lot. And you can get good supermarket bars, which are affordable every day. I always have a chunk in my handbag. I wrap it up in foil, which I don't know if it's friendly, but, you know, I will take a chunk or two, or I take a bar with me. And, you know, it gives you a pep up. I find it gives energy. I find it helps with the memory. Now, there is a bit of research saying that, but to me, when I was looking at menopause and chocolate and research into it, there needs to be a lot more done. I'd love to get involved with it, because the research, a lot of it's in the US, but, you know, the trials are 14 people, 15 people, 100 people. I'm not interested, because actually there's not enough proof. I want 20,000 people or 30,000 people to have tried it. But I mean, now, in fact, one of the biggest cocoa companies, Cacao, who supply a lot of chocolatiers, they have finally got or the FDA, which is an American Federal Drug Administration thing that you have to tick the box if you want to supply the States. They have agreed with Cacao that drinking chocolate that they can use on their cocoa powder, that it's got flavonols in and that it's good for your health. So it's a really big turning point. And it's one thing that you would know more about than me, but flavonols is going to have this big drive. I've just seen in there Audi dark chocolate. It's lovely and comfortable. Perfect. You know?
That's good old Audi. Thank you for that top tip. That's brilliant to know, Julie. Thank you.
Something for everybody out there.
Yeah.
But yes.
The flavonoids is interesting. I mean, welcome to the world of Whole Foods never getting the research that they deserve unless there's a large pharmaceutical looking to do something with them. And it's one of the challenges we have with MPOWDER. So I completely empathise. I mean, what I would like to say, and I'm sure I'm speaking to the whole community listening in, is if anyone does want to run a trial of 20,000 women, I don't think it's going to be hard to recruit for, because I think we'll all race to each chocolate for a trial. But it is fascinating, isn't it? Because I think the thing about cacao and cocoa generally is that there's also that kind of tradition that goes back to ancient times in terms of ceremonies and the kind of the kind of respect given to it as a plant, and that kind of recognition of that kind of warrior like energy that it would kind of impart. So there's kind of often when you look back at the history of food and how it's been used and treated, a lot of the properties that we then find when we stick it in the lab are implicitly in those rituals, aren't they? You know, that's why it was protected and given.
Medicine. I mean, you know, it was a medicine for years and years and years before we adulterated it with sugar and egg. We used to use over here years ago.
Oh wow!
You're quite ill, but it was a medicine, and I think it still is a medicine. But it's that whole thing with food is to get it in the unprocessed state, really, not a state, unprocessed. Oh my goodness, what's the word? Component isn't right, but you know what I'm trying to say. But what I mean, quite interesting in a cocoa bean in its natural state is that the majority of it, over 50% of it's cocoa butter. And then you've got a bit of fibre and cellulose and pectin, which is sort of 27%. And then come in the nutrients, you know, your iron, copper, your manganese, magnesium, your caffeine, your theobromine, you know, lignin, I think they're saying that it's a probiotic. I'm always hesitant about all these health claims because, again, it goes back to, unless there's real scientific proof, it could be a bit of a fad. I mean, who knows? But I think it's really good.
Yeah, and
obviously,
and it's delicious. So talk to me a little bit about the chocolates that we're going to be exploring. A huge thank you to Cocoa Runners and Spencer.
We'll start off with Anoni's Cocoa Retreat. So this chocolate bar kindly given to us by lovely Spencer and Hannah, and you've got Rhea, so I think it's Mia. I always get and I basically said to Spencer, I'd love you to supply us, but they have to supply women. Okay, this was my thing. So on a journey with what's called dark milk chocolate. So it means that you've still got milk in it and you've still got sugar, but I mean, dark chocolate has sugar unless it's 100%, but you have more cocoa solids. So for anyone who is less into dark chocolate, this is a really good way to go about it and start getting into it. So Anoni is Penhurst. She is a woman of many chapters. She's been a journalist, an author, a child psychotherapist, you name it. She only set up her business in 2021. She has a full camper van. Her husband is super cool and he helps her as well. I mean, I think he helps at the fairs. And what I love about Anoni is she is full of innovation. So she just created cocoa truffles using cacao pulp, which is the white sort of lychee flavor. And they are incredible. When you try one, it's like step into a cocoa farm. I mean, it's mind blowing. And she's very unique with that. And her palette is really on the money. So I haven't tried this one. I've tried the So if you want to know about tasting chocolate, just briefly, what you would basically start off with is the look of the bar. You don't want it to be, if it's been done, it would be slightly sort of, what's the word? I'm really losing my vocabulary at the moment. It's discoloured. And what you want is for the colour to be right. You want it to have a slight shine. You don't want any air bubbles or anything on the top. And I'm really hot on it being molded correctly. I mean, I say correctly. So for example, this is completely flat. You want an even, you don't want, so some people, they might have more of a lips that's thicker and thinner. I only know that from judging at Academy of Chocolate. So in this, we've got a little piece of orange and you just basically smell it and you want to smell chocolate, but also if you've got to pick up other aromas on it. And then you want to break it, which we've already done, and do a good snap, and then you just pop it in.
My favorite.
And you allow, rather than biting into it, you just allow it to melt in your mouth. And you'll start getting one flavour note. And then, if it's really good chocolate, which Anonis will be, it will start to develop in the mouth. And it should melt really evenly around the mouth. And what I'm always searching for, it's difficult tasting while talking, but what I'm always searching for is the end note. So I'm slightly impatient as an individual, so I want to get there, okay? People say, enjoy the journey. I'm like, yeah, but I want to do this and I want to do that. And so for me, I want that end note, because the end note is what is going to satiate your appetite. The end note is what you're going to be left with. And if it's interesting, it will still resonate in your mouth. And it will leave you thinking that you're still eating chocolate, but you've already finished the piece.
That's such a good tip, actually, because I obviously just bolt it down as a rule. But that's being encouraged just to let it melt is a completely different experience. And you're right, it kind of fills your whole mouth, doesn't it, with flavour.
Doing on the caramelized orange at the end. But it's sort of got a caramelly bit. I mean, the thing is that you're going to taste the orange. That's going to be the main thing. But you're left with a very, what I call clean note.
Right.
If that. So that's Anonis.
That's delicious. Thank you, Anoni. And these are all available, aren't they, through Cacao, I know,
they're all
Amelia.
available for Spencer, who's giving us a discount code. He's setting up a Women in Chocolate box, and we're all on it. I'm not on commission, in case anyone thinks so. I'm not on commission with anyone. I just love chatting chocolate.
I love it.
Pay me to chat. I'll be paid.
And I'd like to join
so
without any qualifications at all.
Cacao. This bar is created by Tomoko and Sue, and they're based in Portugal. And they set up in, I think it's 2015. I've got them somewhere. And their package is based on the tile.
I was going to say, it reminds me of the Portuguese tiles. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And this one, so this has actually got cacao nibs in too. And the other thing, really good chocolate, is that you want to see that it's got cocoa solids first. You don't want to see sugar. A lot of cheap chocolate, sugar will be the first ingredient.
Okay.
So it's 57%. So again, it's a dark milk, and that's what's interesting. I don't know if you noticed that from. Oh, actually, you don't need cocoa milk. I don't know the cocoa percentage in that.
No, it's not on there, is it?
And only, why is that not? It must be, but not. Okay. So anyway, this is 57%.
Yeah.
Open. They've won an award for it. The Academy of Chocolate is really, I judged a lot of strict judges, and so winning an award on there. It's really good. And the bar is beautiful as well. 50%. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you.
This looks like a tile.
It's beautiful, isn't it? I don't know if you can see the pattern, but yeah, it's really lovely. Yeah.
I've got really poor lighting in my kitchen. I was going to put on. Okay, so with time, you'd look at the appearance, not too many air bubbles. And the aroma you'll find is totally different from Anonis.
Yeah.
So that can be down to the beans, it can be down to the fermentation, it can be, you know, down to, this is an unflavoured bar apart from the nibs.
Right.
So the nibs are going to give it texture. The other thing I've shown to people, everyone here, not people, is try and go for non-alkalized cocoa powder, which is undutched. And that means that you don't have the chemical in it, potassium, I think it's potassium sorbate, and it's a much purer hit. So you can get that from any health food shops. Raw cacao powder will be undutched or non-alkalized.
Yeah. Undutched. And when you're looking at it on a chocolate bar, what would that? How would that appear? I know. how would that appear as a ingredient? I can't speak properly, but how would that, if it's un-Dutch, what would I even look
I
for?
think they put non-alkali.
Do they kind of highlight it
into that?
This is amazing.
So it's a sort of honey caramel flavour. Do you get that? With the crunch of the cacao nibs.
The crunch of the nibs, and the nibs are a little bit bitter, but in a really nice way.
Superb, don't you think?
It's amazing.
And you're still left with an interest at the end of it too.
It's a whole new way of eating chocolate. And this one is obviously that 50,
and then we
7%,
the fiac bars. Now these are, where's my second one?
I've got the two here.
There are supposed to be two.
I've got the 7% and the 50%.
The bar company in Norway, and the founders of that are Agur, who is Spanish, and apologies for not pronouncing the name properly, and Siv, who's Norwegian.
Okay.
And they're 100% organic, and they love the Scandinavian flavors, so things like lingonberries and pine and all that sort of thing you'll find in their flavors. And they're based in the middle of nowhere, I think, their factory.
And they're saying on the back they're highlighting the nuts and tobacco sort of flavoring that they feel comes through with this one. And this is vegan as well, isn't it? I mean,
this is vegan, and it is from Uganda. I'm just really. Oh, here it is. It's here. So this is 70%. Now, for nutrient optimization, you need 70% or above. Ideally, sort of 85%. Are we okay at time? So I know you've got another slide.
I have. I've got a workshop with some practitioners. Well, I'll just be munching the chocolate throughout. But yes, no, we're fine. Let's try this one.
So it's really got a really interesting aroma, and I'm trying to think how I can describe it.
Oh yeah.
It's sort of piney. I mean,
it is. It's earthy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite green. If I was thinking of and a bit of sort of tobacco.
You can smell the tobacco, can't you? Yeah.
Okay. This must be really frustrating for people watching them. They can't really taste. So sorry about that. It's slightly self-indulgent. Now this is fascinating.
Ooh. This is sweet. It tastes sweeter than I expected it to, actually.
The mouthfeel is superb. It's really well balanced.
That's amazing.
So slightly nutty, slightly tobacco-y. I think it's got a lot more than just those two flavors. I can taste the banana.
It's got it's a sweet aftertaste, isn't there, to it? Like a sun-dried banana. That kind of.
You wouldn't know that you're tasting a dark chocolate.
No, and a 70% one as well.
Okay, so the final one is their 50% one.
Yeah.
Ugandan beans. All these craft chocolate makers are making small batches. And just very quickly, the difference between a chocolatier and a chocolate maker. A chocolatier usually uses what we call couverture, so someone else's chocolate, to create their products. And a lot of chocolatiers are really artistic, and they're almost like artists in chocolate. A chocolate maker makes chocolate from bean to bar.
Okay.
And chocolate makers, there are a lot of bean bar, but there are very few who really understand the quality and the fermentation and how to produce exceptional chocolate. It's fascinating. The Academy of Chocolate, I judged probably 150 bars, and we awarded about 10 of them.
Wow.
So but it's people, if you've got a local chocolate maker, it's what you're paying for chocolate is, what really it costs the producers. The margins in chocolate are so, and that's one reason why I closed my business. My bars were selling at £6. I probably made 50p a bar if they're in retailers. So you're paying for quality. You're paying for it to be made in small amounts. You're paying for it to be made with care and love and really good sourcing. And they will all tick the boxes with sustainability, paying fairly, all that side of it, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I agree. Amazing.
Funny, I'm much more dark nowadays. I eat much more dark chocolate. Oh, this is fascinating. It's got a sort of caramel edge, doesn't it? It's 50%, but it tastes almost as if it's a 35%. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's really caramelly, which again, I think they highlighted, yeah, caramel and nuts again.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh, that's heaven. It's almost slightly bready, slightly sort of toasty as well.
That's delicious.
I almost taste currant bun, a currant bun with it. Sort of raisiny.
Yeah. Amazing. Amelia, I'm so impressed by all of the bars, and actually I'm also, it's been a bit of an epiphany for me to actually take my time and really savor the taste of something, because I think back to your point around joy in food and joy in chocolate and our menopause transition and some of these sort of food groups that we just feel that we don't have permission to have anymore. This is a completely different way of doing it, because I can imagine, I don't feel, I'm a real chocolate head, so I'm terrible if the box is open. I will eat the whole thing. But this has been a really different experience. So I'd encourage everyone just watching, and hopefully we haven't made you feel too jealous of this tasting, and that you actually sort of you've been able to sort of stay the distance. But if you have, I think that encouraging you to just take your time with it and very mindfully observe what you're tasting and smelling, and the whole experience is lovely. It's a proper experience.
It is a proper experience, and you can get these. And the code, are you going to put that in your
please
thing?
tell me. Yeah, and I'll put it in the show notes.
It's basically REAMCR15, so 15% discount at Cocoa Runners. And Spencer has got a phenomenal collection, and he's really that's a pleasure, Julie. I'm glad that you've enjoyed it. But basically, he really knows his stuff, Spencer. So explore, and 15%. Hopefully, you can get some really good bars. And he is doing this specific Women in Chocolate box, which means that you can taste exactly what we've tasted tonight. And yeah,
it's been phenomenal. And thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and your joy. I think that's the other thing that's so lovely. So please, those of you who haven't come across Amelia before, do follow Amelia_rope on Instagram. For basically, she'll just make you hungry, but she does also help you discover amazing chocolate bars and chocolate brands, and also Cocoa Runners. The work you've been doing with them, I've been loving seeing you explore some of the brands that they're onboarding as well. It's just been a real delight to see that. So do seek out Spencer and Cocoa Runners as well, which is at Cocoa Runners, all one word. But I'll put all of this into the show notes. And if anyone's got any questions or wants to DM us about any of the bars we tried this evening, or indeed any recommendations, I know Amelia's incredibly generous with her time, so we can get back to you.
I'm thinking of Hazel London Chocolate, really phenomenal for anyone in London. Isabel Dormouse Chocolates, Manchester. Bare Bones up in Glasgow. We've mentioned Louisa, and there's one more. Is there one more? I can't think at the moment, but they are fantastic. And I also eat chocolate made by guys, but I just thought, as this was a female based live, it would be fun to support women in chocolate too.
Totally agree. Thank you so much. I will write
Tozier. Yeah, Tozier. That was on my list. So basically, Diana Tozier, phenomenal, crystallized ginger, coated in 80% Ecuador chocolate, unpanned, so it's really incredible. And then also coffee beans that I've started eating before my run, that again are coated in 80% Ecuador. Unbelievable. She's based in
everyone. Okay, thank you very much, Spencer at Cocoa Runners. But Amelia, such a joy to talk to you. Thank you for making it such fun this evening. I've loved it. Yeah, it's been a real eye opener for me.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and thank you for everybody who joined. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks everyone. Have a good evening. Bye.